Hamim Loyal. This is Eric Grissom.
And I'm Dan Johnson. Eric and I will be rewatching the iconic Twin Peaks from the pilot through the return and everything in between.
While we will be spoiling everything that happens in whatever we're covering, know that we will not ruin future stories. So, if this is your first time watching, or if you're a longtime fan, you can watch along with us as we dive deep into the strange and wonderful world of Twin Peaks and David Lynch.
Inside a dream.
Today we're talking about the first full episode after the pilot, Traces to Nowhere. This was written by David Lynch and Mark Frost, though directed by Dwayne "The Rock" Dunham. So this is going to have a little bit, maybe a different tone we can talk about as we see based on this compared to the pilot. Oh, and the production code is 1.001 in case you're keeping track at home.
Wow.
So the original
I feel
air
like
date...
that was an attack on me somehow. Jesus
I don't know
Christ.
why. Someone's got really thin skin. The original air date was April the 12th of 1990. And Eric, what was playing opposite on the big networks in 1990 against Twin Peaks? Well, first of all, the lead-in on ABC was the Father Dowling Mysteries, which you couldn't ask for a better lead-in to a supernatural
I'm
thriller.
trying to remember Father Dowling Mysteries. Now, I know it's Tom Bosley.
Sure is. Father from Happy Days.
Was he a priest?
He was a priest.
Obviously, it's Father Dowling. It's not just Dad Dowling.
No, he's a dad. Dad Dowling.
But I do remember him like in the, the frock or whatever, the religious attire.
Yep.
I'm seeing Father Dowling behind a chain link fence, maybe in the dirty streets.
Maybe he's by a dumpster behind a
crime
diner.
or whatever. He was solving mysteries.
Yeah, with a nun, I believe, or like an initiate or something. I don't know, but yes, there was
it's a whole
religious
thing.
crime solving. Opposite this, though, on NBC, you got your standby, your ratings killer, Cheers, with a 19.7, so it was beating Twin Peaks significantly. And then in third place, we had Max Monroe, Loose Cannon, Flashback Part 1 of 2, and Flashback Part 2 of 2. It was a back-to-back. It was a 2-hour block of Max Monroe.
Yeah, I've never even heard of Max Monroe.
It starred Shadow Stevens as Max Monroe and Bruce A. Young as Charlie Ivers. I don't know who either of those
I
gentlemen
know
are.
who Shadow Stevens was because he was usually Center Square, or I remember him from Hollywood Square.
No, that's Jim J. Bullock.
No, Shadow Stevens. He had the golden voice. I think he was.
Wait.
He was a
Casey
radio
Kasem,
DJ.
Yeah.
Shadow Stevens.
Rival. A rival.
Maybe.
Casey.
He was the younger guy. Had longer hair, from what I remember, but he was always on Hollywood Square.
Well, speaking of spinning the tunes, number one on the music charts, we had "Love Will Lead You Back" by Taylor Dane. Which is pretty. That puts me in a particular place in the world. Technotronic was also in the top 10. So if you remember that, I remember absolutely dancing in a middle school dance to Technotronic. So that's fantastic. And Nothing Compares to You by Sinead O'Connor, also in the top 10.
Set in the mood.
So pretty great. Anyway, so Eric, that's the time we were in. Why don't we talk about Traces to Nowhere?
We talked about sort of last time, there's the pilot that was, and they had the rights issue. So many people I introduced to Twin Peaks because I had the log VHS set, which was the first 7 episodes, this being episode 1 that we're going to review now.
Wait, what do you mean the log VHS? What was this?
So it was a set of 7 VHS tapes.
Yeah.
Awesome, beautiful packaging.
Yeah.
It came in a log. I mean, it was a cardboard box, but it made to look like a log.
Wow.
And each tape had 1 episode on it. Now, this was the superior set. Later on, World Vision would come out with season 1 and season 2 in a, I think it looked kind of like the Red Room, but they recorded it on EP and not SP, so they could fit more episodes, and quality
gross.
was subpar.
Yeah.
You hardcore video files out there know what I'm talking about with the
Absolutely.
SP or go home, right? But you couldn't get the pilot, right? You had the only way to get the pilot is you had to go to a video store and rent that.
You had to know a guy.
Thing with. So most people started. When I say most people that I introduced this show to was this episode.
How interesting.
Which is weird to think about Twin Peaks and coming into Twin Peaks without seeing the discovery of Laura Palmer, not seeing, and I imagine a lot of people were in that same situation because it was, you couldn't really easily get the pilot, I think, until much later.
Right. Well, and the word of mouth in that week between the pilot and this, I mean, it was pretty much a phenomenon out of the gate. So people would have jumped onto it and been like, okay, I guess I know it. Yeah.
But I'm very excited to talk. This episode there's so many great moments. There's at least one moment that I don't love, which is rare in the Twin Peaks world.
Cannot wait to hear what that is.
But you mentioned Dwayne Dunham had directed this, so it's kind of an interesting story with him. Like, he had worked on Blue Velvet, he was the editor, and then David Lynch asked him to cut the pilot. So the pilot's made in 1989, but they don't really get picked up for almost a whole year goes by. So after they finish cutting the pilot, Dwayne Dunham ends up getting a job on like some other show or project or whatever. And then in that time, between making the pilot and doing Twin Peaks, David Lynch starts doing Wild at Heart. So he's doing Wild at Heart, and he wants Dwayne Dunham to edit it. And Dwayne Dunham's like, I'd love to, but I can't. I got this other job. And basically they pose the question, like, what would it take to get you to quit and work on Wild at Heart? And he said, well, if there was like a directing thing, and he was like, we just got picked up, like, you're directing episode 1. So that's sort of how he ran into it. But it's wild to think of like how prolific David Lynch is in this period.
Yeah.
Because he's shooting the pilot, then he's shooting Wild at Heart, and then he's jumping back, as we're going to see for the next episode, David Lynch directs that. And a lot of this came from, there's a great commentary on this particular episode from Dwayne Dunham that was on the DVD set.
When he finished episode 2 of Twin Peaks, finished shooting it, the first cut of Wild at Heart was completed. So we had, at one time, we had both the feature for Wild at Heart, and we had episode 1, episode 2, and episode 3 all cutting simultaneously in these little cutting rooms that we had over at Todd AO. And it was really an exciting time.
Can you imagine that?
David Lynch was like walking from room to room, like sort of approving things, and Dwayne Dunham was directing this episode and then like going and editing Wild at Heart and then coming back and the same thing for David Lynch. So it's just wild to think about how much creativity was going on at one point. And David Lynch is in like his 40s at the time. It's not like he's a kid, but it's just
that's
very
incredible.
impressive.
So I'm seeing here that at least Dunham didn't need to also edit this episode, so we got John P. Shaw doing the editing instead. But that's insane. And you can think, like, bouncing between those projects now, you have a digital file that has all of them stored. You can just pull up the clips. Like, this must have been all so very manual to keep everything straight as you're bouncing from project to project, from episode to episode to movie and back again. Like, that's got to be so much work. I can't imagine.
So David Lynch is not around. Well, he's around in some sense, but he's pretty much making Wild at Heart like while all this is going on. But what Dwayne Dunham had said, like, he sort of became the reference point while they're making this particular episode, and he tried as best as he could to match the style of Lynch's shooting, like not moving the camera a lot and setting up these because if you pay attention to sort of how the Lynch is shooting some of the stuff we've seen in the pilot, is there's not a ton of camera movement. It's sort of just like you place the camera, and then most of the action is happening within the frame. There's some pushes and some moves, but it's not. It's mostly kind of static, which
you
gives
even
it
notice
a feel.
You almost notice the movements because everything else is so static. I'm thinking of like panning across Laura's bedroom, and then in this and in the first shot inside the Packard house, you kind of have the pan across the wall, seeing the thing. So he does definitely borrow that style. That's so interesting. Yeah.
This is, excuse me, a damn fine cup of coffee. I can't tell you how many cups of coffee in my life, and this is one of the best.
We open up on a long shot of the Great Northern. It's overlooking the iconic falls. It's 6:18, Eric, and we find out we're in room 315. That's Agent Dale Cooper's home away from home in Twin Peaks. And we see Cooper bringing Diane up to speed as he's musing about this mystery and some other older mysteries.
This is great. Like, I love the way that this thing opens when you get that, like, you mentioned it earlier, like the pan over, because you
Yeah.
get to see all of these incredibly strange things that are in the room. Like, it starts, you have Cooper's gun by the side of the bed, and then you get like the taxidermy and the 3D paintings, and then
Yeah.
Cooper is just hanging there like the mounted fish that's on the wall. Like, he's another element that's within this room. And like his joy about the happiness of the hotel, like his checklist of all the things that it has to hit, it's hit this. I love like his conversations with Diane, and then, you know, within just a couple of those lines, like when he's complaining about El Paso, like they've been friends for a long time, or they've worked together rather for a very long time. And I love that about him. You get that line when he walks forward and he's like thinking about Marilyn Monroe and the Kennedys and who really pulled the trigger on JFK. And it's just like a great piece of characterization for Cooper that I just loved.
That's fantastic. Yeah, it's a funny way that you said it, because I noted that as well. We pan across the room. We start with his revolver and police badge and the bullets there, so it's unloaded gun. But as we're panning across, it is taxidermy. There's a hunting rifle mounted on the wall. It's all hunting scenes. So it's really interesting the way that you said that he is hanging from that pipe.
Yeah, he's like a bat.
Iconic, hanging upside down in anti-gravity boots or whatever it is, but you're hanging from the pipe. But actually, now that you say that, that's the same thing you would do if you had a buck or a deer that you killed and you're going to gut it and drain the blood. It's hanging exactly the same, but that's I don't know if that was intentional, but I do like the whole hunting motif. And I was thinking more of Cooper is on the hunt. But when you put that together, it's like, well, also maybe he's, the prey. Like, that's just interesting. Thank you for that. That's cool.
I just and it's also like just so cool because he's not like other guys. I mean, he's literally upside down. He's not even standing the way that we would. And like those boots, and like, again, this is episode 2 or second episode, 1 episode, whatever. And it's like, that's your first introduction. Like, like if you're seeing this for the first time, you know enough about him at this point where you're sort of locked in.
And not only is he quirky in that way, but also as you pan down from his boots, he has his socks with garters still pulling them up there, which is just like, who does that? But he's got the garters. I wonder how long McLaughlin was upside down like that, because the blood was absolutely rushing to his face, and you can hear he's kind of a little nasally in some of it as he's talking. I think some of it must have been VO.
Yeah, I hope that was just a 1 or 2 takes at the most, because that poor guy.
The Marilyn Monroe and the Kennedys, I think, is an interesting way, instead of saying like JFK, the Kennedys, like implying there's a lot more potentially going on there.
Oh yeah, well, both brothers, Robert and Jack. That's how the rumors go. Well, I guess I should save this, but there are a pair of brothers that are very, very similar. Now that it just popped into my head, with Robert Kennedy and John F. Kennedy, 2 philandering brothers. And then you think about Mark Frost and David Lynch writing the Marilyn Monroe biopic, and then this line and whatever. So
I'll
save
that's
that
great.
for
We'll
the
come back
next
to put a
episode.
pin in that one for later. We move on from there. Cooper is looking forward to that first cup of coffee, so go down into the dining room.
Yeah, I love this whole thing, like, from his order.
Yes,
with the 2 eggs over hard and the super crispy bacon, and it's got to be cremated. And then of course you get the orange juice, the grapefruit juice. I'm sorry, freshly squeezed. Cue Audrey coming in. I love all this stuff. The damn fine cup of coffee, and you wonder, like, because he stops the waitress and pays her this wonderful compliment because it's so good. But if it was not a good cup of coffee, I don't know how that scene plays out.
Yeah.
But I love their relationship with Audrey and Cooper, and there's a ton of like sexual tension already between them. That was another thing that was added by Dwayne Dunham.
I made the choice to make it somewhat sexual. There is reference to ordering the grapefruits as she comes sort of bouncing through the room there, smiling. Obviously, the 2 are attracted to one another. For what reason, we don't know yet. But I think the way we played it, it's obvious that Cooper is, at the very least, enchanted by Audrey.
Which, as a kid, was like, oh, great, because there's so much chemistry between these 2. It's just insane. When you're older and you think about it, you're like, oh my God, it's like a FBI guy and a high school girl. And as we go through the story, this relationship, as it is now, it seems, there's some flirting, and we'll see where that goes. But at the time, you're like, oh, I loved it. And Sherilyn Fenn has got longer hair because, again, a lot of time has gone by. She doesn't have the same haircut.
I like this
but
hair
it's
a lot
just the
better.
next
This is
day.
iconic
This hair
to
is
me.
great.
Great.
She is absolutely a beautiful woman. Like the whole thing is just
Stunning.
I love it. And we learn a little bit like, Audrey was not friends with Laura. But she, we reinforce that she tutored her brother, which is
Yep.
good. And there's also I like the line where Sherilyn Fenn is like, he had emotional problems, which runs in the family, which
yeah.
feeds into that Ben Horn, possibly there's something wrong with him. And, he seems to be a likely suspect.
And the distant mother, and obviously Audrey has her own stuff going on. Absolutely.
What's your take on Audrey?
Well, when
and
we
that-
see her coming in, I read it almost was like a lioness coming in. Like she moves like feline. She has this liquid movement to her that is just incredible. And as soon as she lays eyes on Cooper, it's like, okay, game on. Because we've seen in the previous episode that she does kind of set things up to knock them down later. So is this like another thing that she's either actually interested, or is it another plaything? Maybe she doesn't even know what she's going to do yet.
I have the opposite for that. Like I never
Really?
thought, and certainly she's pulling pencils out of things and ruining people's stuff. But I always just feel like it's a very young schoolgirl has a huge crush on this guy. Your palms ever itch? Like all of that stuff felt very innocent to me, not like she's looking for someone to play with.
No, I don't see it that way at all. I mean, maybe that's true. I'm not discounting what you're saying, but I could absolutely read this as she is turning some screws. She knows what she's doing because Cooper knows what she's doing. He's not flirting with her. To be clear, he's taken with her. She is stunning. So like, there's no denying that. But when she does the whole, I get so flushed, do your palms ever look at my ring? What do you think of my ring? And he, at the moment when he's like touches her hand, his expression changes and he is on to what she's doing. So I absolutely read this as she's tweaking him and trying to push some buttons and see what gets a reaction. And he also, because he's Cooper, is already a couple steps ahead and knows what her game is. That's how I absolutely read
So
this.
you don't see it as a genuine crush.
There may be some of that. Well, I also don't know how much of that is conscious on her part. Is this just the way she is in the world and she doesn't even know why she does some of this? But I think there is some of that.
I think at her core of her character, she is a girl who gets what she wants.
Yes, without a doubt.
And when she doesn't get exactly what she wants, it makes her want the thing more.
Sure.
Right? So
Yep.
I can see that aspect of it. But I just see it as more of like she really does like him.
Maybe, yeah.
and he is an agent of the FBI. Like he's not going to slip her his number.
Right.
But I think he's charmed by her.
That is absolutely a possibility too.
And that is like, as a person, when somebody is interested in you, you can't help but sort of feel
Sad for them?
way
Oh,
about
yeah,
it.
sorry. Yes.
yeah.
Again, the way that you said that he gives his order to the waitress is really great. Also, the fact that she is a non-speaking actress in this scene is just funny because he just kind of steamrolls the whole thing. I know, don't tell me it's bad for the artery. It just keeps rolling the whole way through. I think it's beautiful, but it's just a funny thing. But okay, then we move on. We're at the sheriff's station, and there's just a feast of donuts being consumed by everyone. As Cooper kind of gives Harry a rundown for his plans for the day. Later, Doc Hayward reviews Lara's autopsy with Cooper and Harry, and gives them an update on Ronette's condition. So yeah, tell me about especially this as he comes walking in.
From the get-go, right? So you see him walk into the thing, but when he enters the station, there's just a guy with a blowtorch. Just working on, I don't know what he's working on.
Well, I'm wondering, I was wondering if you would know the answer to this. So first, I had the same thought. In the pilot, there's a vestibule, like glass on all four sides when you walk into the police station, and Lucy's on the one side, and it's like through two panes of glass where she was pointing to the other telephone that she's going to send the phone. I think they're dismantling it, and I'm wondering if that is no longer in, like, that was only in the pilot, and they're getting rid of, like, they wanted that space, and they wanted
maybe.
this.
Yeah, maybe there's like a practical reason.
This like 2 seconds of explaining, they're remodeling, getting rid
It's
of
just
it.
so weird that Andy's sitting there, and then everybody's eating the donuts.
Well, each person each person as they come into frame is basically chomped. That like Andy has a well, it looks like a filled fruit pie donut type thing, and as soon as he comes in, chomp, and then as Cooper comes over to Lucy, she's got that stuffed in her mouth, and she's tried to again do the Lucy thing of over explaining where the conference room is, which is fantastic.
Right, and that Harry gets that great gulp.
Yep.
All right, so let's talk about that Doc Hayward scene.
Yeah.
Hey, friends. It's Eric from the future, correcting Eric of the past. I'm about to say something I also said in the pilot, which is that Mark Frost's father, Warren Frost, had a friend whose daughter had been murdered, which is very similar, a mirror image to the character of Doc Hayward having a friend in Leland Palmer who lost a daughter. It's not entirely correct. It wasn't his friend's daughter who was killed. It was his boss's daughter. But all the other details remain. You know, Mark Frost was in middle school. This was his friend's sister that he had a crush on. So all of it's the same. Everything that we talk about this scene is still relevant. But I have to correct myself because I'm going to worry about these things. And I can't get it wrong. And if you're wondering sort of where this even came from, it's two sources, really. There is a great oral history that you can find on theguardian.com, as well as the Mark Frost wrote a foreword for the book Murder at Teal's Pond, Hazel Drew, and the mystery that inspired Twin Peaks. All right, so let's get back to me and Dan talking about this great scene. He had a friend who lost a daughter. Like, remember when we talked about it in the last episode, like what that must have been like.
Yeah.
Like that scene when he's looking at the photos and he's talking about how beautiful she was. Like he lived that. Mm-hmm. That whole thing just added a bit of a thing to
Makes
it.
it more poignant.
We also learn. I like that we learn sort of the time of death. We learn that she died of a loss of blood, bite marks, another clue that we're going to write down in our little journal. Mm-hmm. We find that she was bound, and then she's had sexual relations with 3 men, which opens it up to now there's 3 people that were involved in some form at the time of her death. It's just a really nice scene. I love Warren Frost a lot. The Doc Hayward character
Absolutely.
is great. And as we go into the next scene, it's like such a great cut when who would ever do a thing like that? And of course, you go right to the Johnson household. But I don't know, what did you think about this entire police station scene?
I like I said, I mean, kind of already covered everything, kind of walking in, the walk and talk that he does with all the donuts and everything, but that tonal shift, because that's a funny moment of just Cooper coming in and again, just kind of, here's what we're doing. And Harry doesn't even have a moment to respond. He can't even like swallow the donut while Cooper's talking to him. So that's great. And then immediately it shifts tone and we're in this kind of dimly lit conference room and Doc Hayward's going over the autopsy, which he couldn't bring himself to perform on Laura and had a colleague do it instead. And he said he reviewed the work and also gives the update on Ronette as well. It's just absolutely disturbing that, talk like you said, the many stab wounds, but not any one of them was enough to kill. It's just absolutely terrible. And he says, they ask if any idea when Ronette will be conscious again, and he's like, psychological damage. Plus, he almost chokes on the line too of like what she probably witnessed before Laura died as well. Just gut wrenching scene, but so well done. And I do too. I love Doc Hayward as a character. It's just fantastic. Yeah. But then we move again. We're now over at the Johnson household. We got Leo cleaning his rig as Shelley's leaving for work, only to find out she has another load of laundry she's got to do before she can leave the house. Eric, so what do you think of that?
He is such a piece of trash.
What a piece of work that guy is.
This whole sequence, like Machen Amik, who plays Shelley, she is so awesome. Like I feel so terrible for this poor woman to be in this situation. I want to talk a little bit more about the location rather than the characters. I don't have too much to say other than he's trash. She's wonderful. Is like the washer outside seems odd, but one of the things that I love about the details of the home, the exterior of the home, is there's like gutters that just aren't connected. If you look, their rain gutter, it's just like there's the rain gutter, then there's a space, then there's the elbow, that connects to something that's not connected to anything else. So he just lets his house, like this house is just going to trash.
Right.
Because he's never around. He's going out. He's just off, but he makes her do literally everything, but anything that he could contribute is not happening.
Absolutely. I was wondering about like the laundry outside. We saw, I think in the first episode, we definitely see later that the house is like under construction. So I was like, is it just like
we get more of that at the
temporarily-
end of this.
Is it
one, too.
temporarily relocated out there because that's where work's being done, or is it just like a thing?
I
don't
always
know.
thought it was what you said there was, because as we get to the end of this episode,
Yeah.
they're in the middle of a remodel that you feel like it's been going on forever.
It's probably-
so
yes,
maybe
they're
he's
almost living with it.
building, He promised her a laundry room or something, and now it's outside because that can't be good for the electronics. Maybe that's something that people do, and that's just it seems odd to me, but I guess maybe it is more common.
But it's not even like fully covered either. So it's not like
No. And there's just drawers, and there's no canopy or anything to
Nothing.
keep it from the rain is just going to
Absolutely.
fill that thing up. Like, yeah. But yeah, the other, obviously the big important piece of information
Yes.
is this bloody shirt that poor old dumb Leo didn't realize that he had just given to Shelley to wash because we're going to see whether he's looking for that later on.
what we have also is, it was just funny to me. The only small thing was when Shelley sees that blue shirt that she hides away, there's clearly a cut and a voiceover where she says blood. And I'm just wondering if
blood,
like
yeah.
it didn't actually like read on the screen or something, or this it's just a weird note.
maybe,
to, like,
yeah.
You in a modern like prestige drama version of this, you wouldn't necessarily get that sort of thing. But anyway, it was just really funny. Also, this is the scene where we see the logo on Leo's truck, the big pussycat logo,
Yeah.
right?
He's a big pussycat.
Well, but that pussycat is like some sort of monstrous beast with a tail that's like whipping through it and causing scratches. It's the
So is Leo.
absolutely.
out.
It's a little on the nose, but just so funny, like that the irony of the pink pussycat. But anyway, yeah, that's great. So back at the sheriff's office, Cooper is questioning James and shows him the picnic video. James tells Cooper and Harry that he knew something was wrong with Laura the last time he saw her.
I like this scene a lot because there's a lot of contrasts that go on here. When we look at Bobby's interrogation scene compared to James, I mean, he's
Absolutely.
just the absolute opposite. He's truthful. He's respectful. Cooper is honest with him in
Yeah.
this in the way that he's sort of meeting that and returning respect. I like the idea when they talk about this secret relationship and Cooper's like pressing him, like, how you can't get away with this. She's the homecoming queen. Her boyfriend is the captain of the football team. And he was like, it was a secret because that's the way she wanted it. And you start to build on the idea that Laura is not just a victim of a crime, but she's also doing her own business, controlling people and controlling situations. And you start to get a peek of that here. Like, this guy loves her. If it was up to him, she would break up with Bobby and they would be a couple. But it's like Laura wanted it to be a secret, and we do what Laura says. So I love that little sort of moment with that one line. I think James is awesome in this scene. Like, just when he's talking about the cocaine, and that's James Marshall, which I wonder, like, his name in real life and in the show is James, so that must be so much easier when you're on a set. When we need James on the set, literally you and the actor.
Absolutely.
But I like when he stops to get her to use cocaine, and you could tell that he cares about her. But then you start to build like this timeline, which maybe we could talk a little bit about.
Yes, please.
Like with the day that she dies, the day that she disappears, and like, so he drops in that a few days ago something scared her. So now we know like something happened to Laura, and then he starts to tell us about the last time that we've heard this story now. He told Donna this. Now he's going to tell Cooper about Sparkwood in 21, and we also learned that Laura broke up with him. Or at least Laura said that they couldn't see each other again.
Right.
Now, I would give James this advice if he were here, or anyone listening to this podcast. Do not do what James has done here. Because in the real world, James is going to jail forever.
Absolutely.
Like, James literally just gives motive. He's like, last time I saw her, Sparkwood at 21, she said we couldn't be together anymore. It's like, done. Every other cop in America at that point is just locking him away and keeping him up for 4 days and having him sign. But not in Twin Peaks. In Twin Peaks, truth matters.
Yeah, absolutely.
But there is one bit here. Okay, this is where some of I mentioned there's certain things that I don't love about this particular episode, and we
Okay.
get a hint of it here. So we talk about the necklace. We get a nice
Yes.
reminder that it's a necklace. It's a serialized show, so if you missed the pilot, this is an important piece. So we're reminded of it. And then we get sort of James's memory of Laura.
And this is-
these two flashbacks. This is the first. There's going to be a second one. Were always tough on me, where she's like, "Now my heart belongs to you." The voice changes, which is kind of gives it an eerie quality. I'm okay with this one. The next one is
Okay,
the
save
one
it. We'll get
there. Playing my hand, but otherwise, this is great. I like this scene for the contrast.
The question about this, so that flashback happens after Cooper asks what happened on February 5th. He asked because he looked back through Laura's diary, and there was entry there. So that is what we're meant to, this was the 5th, and this was Laura saying to James in this flashback. Again, I kind of feel like, is this actually what happened? Or is this James' recollection of how it happened? Because she's just so over the top sweet in a way
Yes.
that seems unreal, but maybe that's that's just the way that was, because she is such a mix of the light and dark and the struggle that she has. So I think there's either way to read that is just fine. But this the line reading of that I'm so why I'm so happy today. It's just so I don't like it because it's so over the top.
It's definitely over the top. It's my least favorite. Like, whenever I would introduce new people to this show, this episode, and it's got amazing like some of the greatest things. Damn fine cup of coffee. It's it's putting them on the board. This is the stellar episode. Don't get me wrong, but these two parts were always where I would look over, especially if it was like a new girlfriend or someone. Because I'm like, we just got to wait till you get to the next episode. Like,
Right.
it's this one and
Get
the
through
other one,
this.
because this is where it pushes again. Like, now my heart belongs to you, and then it's like almost too much.
Yes.
But
But I guess it's
yeah.
setting up the contrast, which is it's just totally fine.
The change in the voice, though, I will say, keeps it interesting. Where they slow it down or speed it up, and then the second time we talk about it, doesn't even sound like it's Laura
Not at
doing
all.
or Cheryl Lee doing the
Not at all.
voiceover.
But I was watching it, and my partner Joe was half watching, but not really. But he saw the scene and was like, "Who is she?" Basically, said she seems lame. And I was like, "No,
she's not.
you don't understand. She's so great." But this
that's
this
just
doesn't,
the way he remembers it.
it doesn't really like serve her well. Except you're right. It does, like, maybe it's
But she does stuff. Yeah, again, it's hard to. I don't want to overplay my hand,
Of
knowing
Where
other
it's gonna go.
scenes where she behaves similar. I can't even speak.
Similarly.
Similarly
Lily.
to get what she wanted, with depending on who she was talking
Yes,
to.
yes. So there is some of that too. Moving on, though, we go back to the Johnson house, and Leo's frantically looking for a shirt that has special significance for
Leo's
him.
anger and the standing and just the quiet rage.
Quiet
he's so
fuming.
serious,
Oh.
and he's just standing there. And it's long enough where he's just staring off into the distance, sort of just raging, internally raging,
Yeah.
that it approaches the sublime. Like, it just goes long enough that it's like, that's my Twin Peaks. Because it's not just, if it had been maybe a couple of seconds cut away, it wouldn't have been as strong, but it goes into that weird sort of like just unnerving
Yeah, why are you holding this
realm
so long?
when it just holds a little bit longer on him just but what's on that bloody shirt?
It's
we know
important.
there's a bloody rag right in the train car, like
Yep.
we know about his connection to Ronette Pulaski, so
Got a lot of signs pointing
a
at
lot
him.
of stuff going on here.
After leaving Leo in his impotent rage, we head back over to find Bopper and Snake
Yeah.
back in their favorite holding cell. It seems that Leo and the boys are involved with that $10,000 that Cooper and Harry found at Laura's safety deposit box. So we get a little conversation about
I
this.
love this
Eric.
scene. I love this scene. Well, first off, I feel like I owe the listeners an apology
Yeah, a
because
little bit.
I don't remember, and I've seen this show so many times.
Right.
That Snake carries into the, and maybe he's going to call Mike Snake more
Maybe
than
he
just
always
this episode.
was Snake. Who knows?
Yeah, I didn't. I completely blacked out on
But
that.
thankfully, Bopper doesn't stick around, so that's okay.
But I love this so much. First off, I talked about Mike. I think Mike's great. Gary Hirschberger is the actor's name. Little anecdote I want to throw out here now. I also love the show Columbo. And around the same time, 1990, there was a Columbo movie in which Gary Hirschberger played a character called Cooper. So you do with
Get
that
outta
what
here.
you want. Yes.
It's all in the same universe, right?
Dana Ashbrook, who plays Bobby, and Gary Hirschberger, I love their sort of relationship, their dynamic. This scene to me is also so interesting in the way that it's shot, because there's no close-ups until James comes in. There's no cuts. The camera just pretty much stays still. They're wonderfully framed, with Bobby in the back and then Mike in the front. And you really feel like you're stuck in a cell.
Yeah.
Like there's a sense of claustrophobia and constriction. And it feels like almost like a stage play at that point. And the
I was
two of them
gonna
are
say that.
so great. Like, I just love it. There's a little bit of a camera movement that moves with Mike, but otherwise you're just getting all the details about the fact that, these guys are out there selling cocaine for Leo, and now they got to pay him back, and it's burning a $10,000 hole in my pocket, and now they're screwed.
Yeah.
Because they're missing $10,000 and they owe it to one of the worst people around.
Absolutely.
And I love that.
And they're also, Bobby's not keeping Mike fully involved and informed of what's going on there. And it seems like Mike's not really supposed to be involved because he says, like, you don't know Leo Johnson. Like, I don't know if he's saying, like, you don't know what he's capable of, or if it was, I've always heard it as, you're not supposed to be involved. You don't even know who he is. Keep yourself out of this. So I'm not sure how do you read that?
Yeah,
line?
I think what you're saying, like, so basically
Okay.
Leo and Leo is the guy supplying the drugs. I don't know if we know that yet, but I
we're
feel
getting-
like
I mean,
people
you can
we
put
could
the two
figure
and
that
two.
out from
Yeah.
this scene.
Yeah.
And so Bobby and Laura, maybe they're connected to Leo, whereas Mike is maybe helping them sell the stuff, or he's just sort of his friend. Like, if you're going to go, we got to go. Like, who hasn't been in this situation where there's like one person that knows the person that has whatever you're going after, and the other people are waiting around, and maybe
Right.
they're going to be involved later on in some capacity, but they're not like, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, they're not cool, right?
Right,
They
right.
haven't been sort
Not
of
connected to it,
vetted.
yeah.
They haven't been vetted to talk to this person. But I also think that there's a hint of, you don't know Leo because I've got something on Leo. I'm sleeping with Leo's wife,
yeah.
and I've got plans for Leo.
Interesting.
So,
yeah.
there's that piece to it that I've always sort of read into there.
Yeah.
Read into that.
In this part, you mentioned it does feel like a stage play, mostly because the camera's still, and it's a one shot. It's in one for most of this until James comes in. But also, this happens here, and it happens with Audrey later, because the camera's so static, and we're not getting not getting reverse shots and things like this. Mike is like, well, what night was it that you called, or what night was it that you gave Laura the money, whatever. He kind of turns to the camera and is like, kind of, talking to he does that like cheat to the audience sort of thing that you would do in the stage play. Audrey does the same thing whenever she's, confronted with her dad, and she turns back to the camera. It just sets this whole thing in this strange, very grounded realism that also has this competing sense of unreality at the same time, because people don't like soliloquize, perform soliloquies. Soliloquize, is that a word? Anyway, but like turn to do that, like that doesn't happen. But if you buy it here, it's just interesting the way that it's staged to get that effect as well. But it does turn when James comes in. In this case, though, James, like I asked before in the previous episode, what was your read on James' expression and kind of cornered animal? In this one, I don't see that at all. I see James being like very defiant, like ready for anything. And it's after this interview with Cooper, I think maybe because he's given up everything, like he's let the chips fall where they may. He's got nothing to lose now. Yeah. So after this, though, now we get this extra, the scene that you've been waiting for, folks. This is the one that Eric absolutely loves.
Yeah, it's not my favorite scene.
We get this, and it is also strange because we haven't seen this before, and maybe we see this another time, but I don't really recall. But it's just this.
Not my favorite audio.
It's this out of nowhere playing of the picnic video of Laura, Donna, and James, playing in slow motion with the voice overlaid on Laura's face saying, "Help me,
help
slow
me."
down." It doesn't sound like her at all. But also, like, I guess just the point is, everything else has been diegetic. Whenever we see the video previously, it's because it's being shown to one of the characters. This is just out of nowhere. It's just inserted. It feels very strange.
A transitional thing.
Yeah.
And but like, is it a transitional thing?
Maybe.
Because the next scene that we see is Donna waking up.
Oh,
She
maybe
had
it was a
slept
dream.
late, so it could be her dream. So I think you could find somewhere to,
Some way to
put
connect it.
I just hate the audio. So
Yeah.
like I don't mind the video. I think it's a
No, I
cool
don't either, clearly.
I think it's a great representation of Laura. It's like she's got a great smile. Like the whole thing is good. I just wouldn't have made that choice to just because it's so like on the nose. But then it's like I don't know. It's a weird voice too. But I'm
So
okay
it's not
with the
just
weird
the audio,
stuff.
not just the voice
If you
itself,
would cut
but
the
fact
audio
that she
and had
says
this
it. Yes,
scene,
same.
I would be. I would.
You don't need it.
I would have no problem. It's just
didn't need it.
basically that it just says "help me"
Yeah, you didn't need
because
it.
it's like. But again, if you think about it, okay, how would Donna's mind like maybe that's how Donna would think. Help me! I've got to help Laura. Like this
Yeah,
is the
that does
thing
fit with
that's
her character.
driving her character. So
Yeah, for sure.
it's fine.
So strange though, but
Speaking
yeah,
of
like you
Donna.
said, we're at the Haywards now. Donna gets a late start to the day. She's got to sleep in, and she's got a heart-to-heart with her mother. So tell me about this little scene we got here.
Yeah, this is cool. Now,
Yeah.
if you don't know, like that is Mary Jo Deschanel, Eileen Hayward. Now, her husband Caleb Deschanel directs a few episodes to come, but she is the mother of Zoe Deschanel. So I don't know which episodes that they film, but at some point in Twin Peaks, little Zoe Deschanel is on set, like walking around because her parents were involved in the making of
Oh, wow.
Twin Peaks. So that's
Oh,
a little fun fact
fun
for
little
you.
behind the scenes. All right.
Yeah, I don't have a lot to. I mean, this is again. Donna comes down in the football top, and I'm always like, it's. I don't know. I don't know a lot about sports. It looks sporty.
Yeah.
I'm assuming it's Mike's shirt. She's wearing Mike's football jersey or something, which is
She
like
doesn't even like Mike. I mean, maybe you're probably right, but
right.
still,
So I
like,
don't know. That's my only comment. I really
Gross.
do like her mom. Like I think it's a good scene. I'm glad the scene's in there.
The relationship between the two is nice.
Yeah, and they're
The
talking
fact-
about James, and we were falling in love, and you set up this thing where now the parents are going to want to meet James, but yeah, I
We
don't
also
have
set
much
up in
to
the
say about
previous
this.
episode of like Doc Hayward saying to Donna that we're so lucky to have a daughter like you, and then we see here her relationship with her mother is similarly as close. She's confiding in her. She says, "Can we keep this between the two of us?" and all that. Like it's just setting up a nice relationship.
She's got great parents.
Absolutely. And the two things that I think was kind of stood out was the line that Donna says that she's sad and having the most beautiful dream and the most terrible nightmare all at once, which is just this show in a nutshell. Like
Yeah.
a great way to summarize the entire thing. And also then how good James was for Laura and how troubled she was. There's the indication that Donna really does know something that was going on. And even though she knew how good James was for Laura, she couldn't help her feelings. So I love that conflict, but I really think that emotional beat between her and mom was really nice.
It's good.
So,
And one other thing, I don't know if it's probably worth pointing out. Like this is one of the first times I remember watching a show with like an actor in a wheelchair, and not only that, it's not
the story.
It's not the story.
Nope. It just is. And then we're back at the station. We got Harry and Cooper. They're set to interview Bobby and Mike. Meanwhile, we got Big Ed. He's there to pick up James. And Cooper gets a phone call, a long distance phone call.
Yeah.
This
love
is
it.
so
I love
interesting.
I love these meeting scenes, like
Yeah.
when you get to see Cooper meet all these characters that we know and then we've gotten to know. And the meeting of Ed and Cooper is great. There's
Yep.
instantly a mutual respect because we already like Ed.
Yes.
And we already like and respect Cooper. So
we all
this
like
is
Harry.
easy.
They both like Harry.
It's so
Yep.
these like the Doc Hayward, Harry, Big Ed, Hawk, who we'll meet in a little bit, and Cooper. Like those are my guys. Like that's the team, and it's so easy to root for them. And just the way that they interact, and it's just perfect.
If only
it's so
they
much
had, like,
different
a-
than when he met Jacoby.
Oh,
It's like
yes.
the opposite.
Yeah.
You know, here he is, like meeting him. I love that. We get to hear about Albert, which you alluded to.
Yeah.
I like that Lucy is like, it sounds like wind blowing
through
through the
trees.
trees. So I'm like, yeah, I'm in
It's
for that.
perfect. It's perfect.
Yeah, and I do like also the kind of the seeding of, I feel like I got someone slipped me a roofie or whatever, a Mickey. and Jacques Renault was, and it's like, how many characters are we getting? There's
Right.
another like mysterious bad guy.
We're
that we
laying
gotta
the
deal
seeds for Jacques Renault. We get
with. And we
the
hint
second
at the
reference of-
Bookhouse Boys as well.
Yep,
which
we
is
get the
nice.
Bookhouse Boys. We get Albert Rosenfeld again mentioned. We've not seen, but this is the second mention of him. Cooper's really matter of fact with the timing. They got to put her in the ground. Like that's the only case where it's like, I guess it's fine. He's just like very matter of fact. This is business and what he's doing. But that always struck me as a little bit insensitive from Cooper. But be that as it may.
Oh, saying we have to put her in the ground.
Yeah, just that turn of phrase is a weird one. The family needs to bury her, or
I feel like
whatever.
he's beyond life and death.
Maybe
I don't.
that's what it is,
Yeah, I
yeah.
definitely don't see it as in that sense.
No, I don't
saw
think
it
it's
in
mean.
the opposite.
It's just
Right,
very
no, but
businesslike.
yeah, I was like, it's more important for the families than it is for the law enforcement.
Sure. Yep. The
You
time
know what I mean?
they
Like,
have to
he's
work their
not
schedule around
saying,
them.
Right. Well, we'll
Yeah.
keep her as long as we want. You can have whatever.
Right, right.
The language itself is like he's beyond. Like
Yeah, yeah.
Again, he is like. If this show were coming out today, people would be saying Cooper's on the spectrum, like in the way that he talks and the way that he.
Sure, I guess, yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
And I think
yeah,
there
yeah.
is something to that. I mean, that's probably.
Well, you're right, because they do that so often with these types of shows. There are so many, like, whatever quirky police procedurals with the strange
Yeah.
person who, yeah, I could absolutely
Not
see
even
that
just strange
trope.
person, but how you hyper obsessives about
Sure.
things and language, saying something that comes across as insensitive, but
Right.
the intent is not to be
Absolutely.
insensitive.
Yeah.
And I think there's truth to that.
Yeah. There's one other line that I liked, Cooper with the big grin at the end, talking to Albert on the phone, says, if you come up this way, stop by the lamplighter and they got a cherry pie that'll kill you. And
Yeah.
he's just got that big smile on his face, which is great.
Right. Which is, again, another line like they're literally investigating a murder.
Yep.
And he's talking about
The cherry pie that's going to kill you. That's great. We head over now to the general store. We got Nadine and Norma bumping into each other, and we learn that Nadine's an inventor, Eric.
Yeah. This is a cool scene, too, because if you put your head in Norma's body, put your head in
I
Norma's
think
body.
you-
Now, that's
you're
a
right.
show.
That's
Yeah,
a show.
But the fact that she's sleeping with Big Ed, or she's in love with Big Ed, she's running into the woman who
Literally bumping
has
into her.
Big Ed.
Yeah.
And so that's probably on her mind. And all Nadine cares about is these freaking drape runners. And her line about being up at 4 a.m. when I was waiting for my husband to get released from intensive care
Yeah.
always makes me smile.
Yeah.
But I love that. I love the fact that these two characters meet and one could care less and the other one is like, oh my God, this is the woman that's with the man I love. Because they want to be together. And
Wait,
yet-
wait. Who couldn't care less? Which one doesn't care less?
Nadine is not thinking about Norma and Ed.
No.
She's
No,
thinking
no.
about
No.
drape runners.
You're wrong. I
I
think
don't-
you're 100% wrong. I think what she's trying to tell Norma is he's my man. He even went all the way to Gentleman Jim's and put up we put
Jim's is
them
the
up
best name.
when she says we put them up together. She's trying to show Norma, no, he's still mine. He's even still working on the house with me. This is 100% her trying to show that she still has Big Ed. And it's the craziest way to do it. It's like, it doesn't make any sense.
Right.
Like, really,
I
she's
just-
grasping at straws, but that's what how
I
she's
can
doing
understand where you're coming from. I
Yeah.
think that's totally legit.
Sorry to
And
jump
that may
out
be
there,
the
but
way,
like-
that may be the way it is. But I just still see it as her being hyper focused.
Yes.
On the drapes, beyond, like, she should be mad about Norma
Sure,
or feel
yeah.
whatever, but she is just in the drape world.
Because I think she's displacing that. She's not able to do that. So this is the thing she's going to fixate on at 4 a.m. and comes up with cotton balls as the solution to the drape runners. Which,
Yeah, but see,
in and of
I
itself
don't
is
know.
great.
I just have a different take.
Yeah,
Just
sure,
even
absolutely.
thinking about her saying that, like, I'm outside. My husband has been hurt.
In intensive care, yeah,
Norma cares that he's hurt.
yes,
While he's hurt in intensive care, she's not thinking, is he going to get better? She's thinking about drape runners.
I think maybe because she wants it. Yeah, okay, that's fair. I think,
And
I
I
don't
think
either
they're
of us
both
are
valid.
wrong.
I mean,
Yeah,
there's no
totally
there's
right.
no right. And by the way, I'm going to drop this in here. I meant
Here it
to
comes.
drop this in last time.
Uh-huh.
David Lynch would hate me.
Absolutely.
And I love him so much, and he would hate me, like, because the show is the show. That's the shit, like, talking about it, and even the stuff when I'm talking about behind-the-scenes stuff, like,
Right.
I'm sure that would put a dagger in his heart.
Well, no, I
But
don't
I
know
do
that's
it out of
necessarily
love.
True.
But there's no right answer. That's
right.
So that's my ultimate point.
That's right. I don't think he'd have any problem with people dissecting this. He's making a puzzle box show. He's made puzzle box movies. Like, that is fine. It's the certainty that you're right. That's, I think, what he would have a problem with. So as long as we're open to any interpretation, that's totally fine. So don't worry. He still loves you.
We know she wanted the drapes.
Yes.
We know Ed hung them.
Yes.
We know
They're beige
they were
shears.
making too much noise. Now she's adding a new element, cotton balls.
Cotton balls.
See how that plays out.
Well, let's see. We got Big Ed, though, coming back to pick up James at the sheriff's station. They mentioned the Bookhouse Boys here, so that's presumably a group of tough librarians.
Yes.
Because James needs someone to watch his back because he knows that Snake and the Big Bopper are going to get released soon. Cooper and Harry let the boys go, but he does give James a warning that, gives Bobby a warning that James' health is something that he should be aware of. Tell me about what you thought
this
about
is great.
whole...
Well, first off, to point out, this is the first time we see Hawk, Deputy Hawk. Now, we had seen him in the pilot. We didn't mention it.
Right.
He's in one scene in the school library.
Yep.
When they're interviewing Bobby. It's Andy and Hawk. Has no lines.
No lines.
He still doesn't have any lines
He still
here.
doesn't have a character name yet.
He doesn't have a character name.
Or hasn't been said, anyway. Yeah.
Yes. And he never meets Cooper. But when
true.
they just know each other, which is fine. They meet
it's fine.
off panel, I was going to say, but it's
Off panel.
off.
Your comic book art is fine.
Yeah, so whatever. I love Hawk. He's one of my favorite characters.
He's great.
His name is Tommy something.
It's
Tommy Hawk. Like his
Tommy
name is not
Hawk
actually
Hawk.
Hawk.
Hawk is his nickname.
And
I
he's
had to look
Hawk
that up
from
because
the
they call him
Tommy
Tommy,
part.
and I was like, wait a minute, Tommy Hawk, get out of here. But
Yeah.
that's the joke. That's his nickname. We got the Bookhouse Boys. They do the secret sign,
Yeah, so
which is kind of
you
cool.
hint at the secret
Yeah.
society is happening. Well, you hear about it. I think a little bit more or you hint at it when he first talks to Truman. Now you get this.
You get this
business.
thing. Yep.
Then you get the name drop, which
Yep.
is like, okay, something's going on, and the police are involved with Big Ed. So what is happening here?
Yep.
We learn a little bit about James' mom, which is interesting. We just know that she's not going to be around, and you get the sense that maybe she's not around, and so he's got a bit of a hard life.
Yeah.
And you get the whole Holmes and Watson angle.
Oh
as
yeah,
well.
that's great. I forgot about that. Yeah, that's really nice. We also
One other moment for it, and then I'll hand it off to you.
Sure.
I love Cooper.
okay.
Right?
Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
Like, I always wanted to be Cooper, but the easier path was clearly to be Bobby. That was like ground I could cover. I wasn't going to make the mountain, which would be Cooper. But I love, he's weird, he's quirky, but there's a threat behind his words. Like when he
yes.
does that bit to Bobby and Mike, and
Yeah.
he's like, if any, you mentioned if anything happens to James, like he's not a pushover.
Yeah.
Like he's weird, funny, quirky. He's going to talk about, but you're also kind of afraid of him.
Yeah.
Like if you were on the wrong side of, like he's going to, like he's the perfect FBI guy, or what you would imagine an
Absolutely.
FBI guy would be. But yes,
Yeah, because
what did you think of this?
When he gives that line, you pray for the health and safety of James Hurley. He has a big grin on his face
Yeah.
too. It's a like
Yes, he's
You're not gonna mess
definitely a threat, a force to be reckoned
yeah,
with.
yeah,
right?
Not a pushover. You're right. I also do like the small note that has the toot toot on the whistle that he was whittling and the stakeout the night before. So he's finished it and now he's toot toot. It's great. Really
Dude,
nice.
that is amazing because I never connected
Yeah.
that that's what he was whittling.
Yeah. He was
This
whittling
whole-
a
that's
whistle,
awesome.
which is super funny.
That's awesome.
But he just
Does
gets
he
to do the
say
little
that?
toot-toot.
Does he say that it's
No,
he's?
but it's the same
Oh,
thing.
that's
It's,
such
it's
a
a
nice
wooden, it's a
catch.
wooden train whistle. So you just carved that. which
Oh,
is
that's
super
so
good.
cool.
Yeah, really cute. Yeah, so we got that, and as you mentioned, I should start studying medicine because I'm starting to feel like Dr. Watson, which is nice because you had actually mentioned that previously that's their relationship, and I think Cooper actually likes that as well because but this is the one. We're watching this now. There's no commercials, but like that was a commercial break. That was like an act break as well. But just the look on their faces as it fades out, it's like, oh, these guys are so
They got great chemistry.
They got great chemistry. But moving right along now after the commercial break, it's early morning at the Packard house. Pete's cleaning some fish and giving Josie an English lesson. Cooper and Harry arrive to talk with Mrs. Packard, and Pete serves the fellas a strange cup of joe. On the phone, we get Catherine berating Josie about the cost of the mill closure shenanigans. Eric, tell
Yes.
me about this
Well, I will say,
scene.
it's unless that was sarcasm, it's not early morning, right? Because she says top of the morning, and he's like, she says top to the morning or something, and he says no, it's top of the morning, and it's not even morning, it's barely morning.
Oh, you're
I
totally
think it's
right.
Like
You're right.
11
You're right.
o'clock.
You're right.
Which is an interesting thing. Because she's sleeping so late, and she comes down and she's in like her robe.
Yeah.
By the way, and then Harry and Cooper are there, and the next time you see her, she's in that red dress.
Oh, she went to change.
But she
'cause
also
knew
went
Harry
to
was
make
there.
coffee. She's like, I'm going to, like, but it's like, whatever, it's fine. But the fact that
You're
she's
right.
late, like, what? Okay, well, what's is there more to Josie maybe than we know at this point? I love Joan
Interesting.
Chen. I think she is awesome. I don't know if she had been in anything prior to this in the States. From what I know, she was a star in China. She's absolutely a beautiful woman. We talked about all these beautiful women. It's never ending beauty on the show. But I have to bring this up, and I will say this is no offense. If you find this offensive, you have to take it up with my dad, who is deceased.
Okay.
We would watch this show religiously, my sister and her boyfriend, and we would look forward and we would hang on every mystery, every word. Who killed Laura Palmer? We wanted to know. And sometimes my dad would just, if we were at his house for his weekends, he would just pop in every time he would see Joan Chen. He would just talk, she reminds me of this Korean woman I used to sleep with. And then he would just regale us with these tales of and they were all married, by the way, all these women. And we'd be trying to okay, just stop every time. And this is live TV. There's no pause in 1990. She's so beautiful. And he would call everyone chippies. I think that was something. I had an old dad.
Oh,
I had
Chippies.
a
That's
very-
a British. Yeah, okay. It's British.
I don't know. He was like, he was old when I was young. Yeah. So every time I see her too, and my sister and I will still, he would constantly that would trigger him. It was like you'd be watching a scene and please no Josie Packard. Oh, look at her. She is so beautiful. She looks just like, and then he would say some Korean woman that he was having an affair
I don't
with.
know how that could possibly be offensive, Eric. So that's totally fine. Joan Chen did. She had a movie that came out before this, pretty well known, The Last Emperor. Bernardo.
Oh, that came out before
Bertolucci.
this.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So I guess her star
I had seen
in
that
America was on the rise. And
Okay, so
she did some TV.
She had
like,
already
appearances.
been established. That's
Yep.
interesting.
Anyway.
She's awesome. I love her her character, and the expressions are so cute.
Not just her expressions, the way that she turns a phrase. It's not just the writing, but the way that she accents different words in a sentence in a way that's maybe indicative of a non-native speaker, but just gives everything a slightly different quality to it. The way that it sticks, what Laura said, stuck on my mind. There's different things that she
Yes.
says. They're just,
It becomes
captivating.
hypnotic and captivating.
yeah. But anyway, yes. So we got the,
Again, we talked about how she's in red. You find out Cooper likes his coffee black as midnight and a moonless night.
well, while he's doing that, while Cooper's explaining that, if you watch in the back, the silent interactions going on between Harry and Josie are great. Harry cannot keep his eyes off of her, and she catches his eye, and then she kind of tries to reel it in a little bit.
Yeah.
It's terrific, and it pays
Which
off
is
really
nice
quickly.
about that, because when you get that payoff where he's like, so
Yeah.
how long you've been?
Yeah.
There's evidence for
Already
it.
happened.
That
I was looking
it's-
for it this time just to see.
he's not a
and it's
mind
there.
reader.
It's there.
It's just
Yep.
right. He is like Sherlock Holmes. That
Yep.
was basically Sherlock Holmes. You learn an important detail that Josie had hired Laura to teach her English.
Yeah.
And the last time that they saw her, or last time they saw each other, was Thursday afternoon. The pilot is the 24th, which is a Friday. They
Mm-hmm.
find her body. That Thursday was the night that she was killed. So
Yep.
she sees her the afternoon that she dies.
Interesting. Yep.
So, and it's also interesting, the pilot is one day, right? We
Mm-hmm.
find Laura in the morning, and then at the end, you've got Harry.
It's about 24
and
hours.
Josie's about 24 hours. So now we
Yeah.
know this is the start of the next day.
Yeah, barely
We
hours
don't quite
later.
complete the day, so it's not like a 1-to-1, but it's almost a 1-to-1.
Yeah.
But it's just interesting to see. So they've had a connection. She saw her, and she says that weird line about, I think now I understand how you feel about your husband's death. Mm-hmm. what does that mean? I don't know.
They didn't have a heart to heart about it.
Yeah. Just cool. It's just very interesting. And again, now we get the first sign that Cooper can tell if you're involved secretly with someone. And of course, the famous fish in the percolator scene.
There was a fish in the park. It's so
Which we saw him cutting
great.
up
cutting
the fish,
cutting the fish. But Josie's the one who made
Josie
the
did it,
coffee,
right? Jesus,
yeah.
yeah.
So Josie did it because I guess this is what you're speaking to. She's like she's making the coffee and she's getting change and she's probably putting herself together because Harry's going to be there and blah blah. So whatever. She just. Yeah. I don't know. Just kind of.
I love the
attention.
scene of Pete sniffing the percolator too later when he's cleaning it out. And
Yeah.
he's just like,
and the guys, whenever they actually drink it, they had just taken a sip and hadn't swallowed yet, and they're just, what are they going to do with it? Is great. There's also this weird. This is so small. It's inconsequential. But as Josie's talking, and Harry and Cooper are sitting on the sofa with the coffee table there, Cooper's typing on his scientific calculator. Like today, that would have been he was like on his iPhone or whatever, but he's tapping on it during this. Means nothing. I don't know why. It's just a strange thing that
I
he's
think
doing.
isn't the part that he's tapping when she's telling him that she saw her on Thursday? He's
Maybe.
taking notes, case notes.
But he's not on a calculator.
Well, it's the thing that he says he did not do it. Like it's like
you could
a
do that on a
digital notebook.
Yeah,
that
I
they
don't
used
know if that's. You think that's what it was? Because he used the tape recorder for that.
Well,
He
it would be weird to
also
like
has
bust
a notebook.
I don't think he has a notebook.
Now I'm trying to remember if he does. I remember someone pointing
I
out.
think he's just taking digital.
It's just a strange thing.
because that's actually something my dad had. He had the
It's
thing.
1990 though.
Yeah.
I guess there was like the Newton was out around that time.
in the 80s. They had those things. They had very very small screens.
No, I want research. I want people to send in an original from 1990 to
My
show
dad
us.
had something just like that. My dad also has, and I still have it now. I have the exact magnifying glass with the light on it that he uses to examine.
Oh, that's
the
great.
fingernails.
Oh,
It's around here somewhere.
Now
It's,
you made me think about the fingernails again.
Yeah. Also, one other point before we jump off,
Absolutely.
it's great to have this episode. He gets the best cup of coffee in the world.
Yeah, I was saying.
And
the same
then
thing,
he
yes.
gets the worst cup
Absolutely.
of coffee in the world within the same day.
Within the same day.
From what Dwayne Dunham had said, at some point he was out with his wife and they were camping with their kids. And she gave him a cup of coffee, and the coffee tasted weird. Something was wrong with it. And it turned out there was hot dogs in the coffee. Oh, God. And he had told David Lynch that story, and then this ended up. So whether or
That's
not
terrific.
That was why this came or not, but it may have.
It's a
had to do
fun-
with
it's a fun
his
joke.
kids putting hot dogs in the coffee. But it's a great moment.
Pete's reading of that line is fantastic. We also find out, we see a bit of the next scene in this scene as Catherine calls Josie and berates her about the $87,000 that the closure for the day cost, which, wow, that mill is making a lot. It seems like a lot of money for half a day closure.
I don't know
whatever it was.
I don't know how the mill works.
I
I don't know
don't
how
either.
businesses work like that.
I don't know any of this stuff, but that's
seems-
great.
it seems-
But you see her, and she's got a glass of wine beside her as Catherine does as she does this, and how distraught Josie is when she comes back as well, which is really great. But anyway, so we move on to the next scene with Catherine, and we see who she's with. She's meeting up with Ben for a very adult business meeting about the future of the sawmill, and they kindle a fire between them.
Yeah, again with fire and kindling and Ben. We learned that Ben and Catherine have been involved in the past, right? So you get
Seemingly a very long time.
yeah, and you get at least I get the sense that there's some jealousy in Catherine about Ben and his other girls. So I always took it as they had probably a pretty torrid affair at one point that then went cold.
Yeah.
And now, years later, they are rekindling it because they have common business interests. But I do sense, she's a bit jealous, I think, of him with these young floozies, and he always should have been with me kind of thing.
Yeah.
We also hear about the ledger, so that's something to keep in mind.
Yeah.
And again, the fire, Ben and the fire.
Yeah. Yeah, you're totally right. I mean, it definitely does feel like it was something that they had going pretty strong that did cool off. And also just, Catherine's just not taking his charm such as it is. Like,
Yeah.
you
No,
can't.
she's
you
over
old dog.
that part
She's
of it.
totally over that. But it is also great, like when they start talking about, well, maybe they're going to set the sawmill on fire and the arson. That's what gets the two of them hot, is just a great...
Well, that's what gets Ben hot.
Well, I think, yeah, maybe.
Because even before that, Catherine's kind of like, I remember when we used to be in bed all day. Like, I feel like there's more.
She was doing that to get him.
On her to get him than the other way around.
That's fine.
Whereas Ben is turned on by money and power and everything else.
Business and love are the same thing to him. So that's she knows what she's doing. We go next over to the Palmer's house. Donna visits Sarah Palmer, who misses Laura so much. And Sarah has a disturbing vision.
Oh, great shot of Bob behind the bed. My son, who also is named Cooper, we reenacted this shot years ago. Such a great picture where he's got like a gray wig on and a jean jacket. It's his idea. Like I had shown him the pilot maybe too early, and he was like, let's do it. So yeah, we did it.
That's hilarious.
I love that. And again, we mentioned it in the pilot review. David Lynch was upstairs cleaning something, and he heard the thing about Frank being trapped by the dresser, and he just shot this footage, which ends up here, which is so
good.
The Laura over her face bit, like, it gets the point done. It's not
the best
not my
effect.
favorite moment. You know, this is like another one, but it's fine. Like, it's not it. You know, you understand the reasoning behind it. And Sarah just going nuts, like, you know, screaming. Yeah, it's awesome.
It's that like percussive, like rah rah rah.
Yeah.
It's not like one wail, just like it keeps hitting her over and over again.
If you're Leland,
scary.
now if you're Leland, you're grieving the loss of your daughter.
Yeah.
And then also having to deal with Sarah.
Yeah.
Who every 5 minutes is going, Leland, and then screaming and just being a complete, like, she's a lot of work. I love her. She's
got a lot going on.
clairvoyant. Like, but she is a dangerous character in a way.
Absolutely. The only couple small things as we open on the exterior of their house, there's a rumbling thunderstorm in the distance, which is kind of setting the tone and kind of a tonal shift before we get into the house. And Leland's only thing he says to Donna is try not to upset her. And what's the first thing she does? She upsets her. We also get this, we saw this before with Donna, and this is like a stylistic choice with the writing and performance as well. When Donna's with James, James, over and over again. And this, we get, I miss her so much. Don't you miss her? I miss her so much. I miss her so much. I miss her so much. It's just that repetition of it over and over again.
She starts spiraling.
Oh, it's
a lot of grief that poor woman's going through.
Oh, poor Donna, too. She got caught in the middle of that.
And speaking of grief,
over at the Calhoun Memorial Hospital, Deputy Hawk, who we don't actually know his name, some unknown deputy, interviews the Pulaskis about the day Ronette went missing. The one-armed man returns to the hospital and heads towards the morgue, which is, I guess, like located near the hospital tanning room. I don't know why the black light in that room, but that's
looks
fine.
very cool, though.
It does look pretty cool, but it's so strange. But yeah, so we got this small scene here.
Yeah, we get to finally meet the Pulaskis.
We only saw the dad from a distance.
Yeah, we saw him sort of being led away in grief. The sweetest smelling job I ever had. So now we know that Ronette Pulaski worked at Horn's department store at the perfume counter.
Yep.
You get the one-armed man stuff. Again, the blue light is cool. As to why it's there, like, I'm not
It's totally
sure.
fine, but it's just so strange.
The whole look of the show is just so interesting. Like the rich, like it's a very reddish show, and so when you have like those blues and stuff like that, it just looks wild.
Really stands
and
out.
Again, Hawk finally gets a chance to speak and get some lines. So
yeah, and I
see
love
more
that
of
he notices the elevator open in the kind of circular mirror there and sees the one-armed man is just like, I gotta follow this guy into that restricted area. So we know that Hawk's on his game there. He's got some intuition, but that's great. After this, we're back in the Great Northern in Ben Horn's office. Audrey's having a solo dance party, and Ben confronts his daughter about her interaction with the Norwegians.
Audrey is so dreamy.
She's so dreamy.
This is just a great moment. A great scene with Sherilyn Fenn and Richard Bamer, who plays Ben Horn. This is a good scene to see the confrontation between the father and the daughter, and the daughter just wants attention from the father, and this is how she knows how they're going to even talk. Because if she didn't blow the deal, maybe he wouldn't spend the 5 minutes or 10 minutes to even talk to her. It kills me with that line, like, Laura died 2 days ago, but I lost you years ago.
Absolutely.
Like, that is hard to hear. Now, technically, Doc Hayward said she died between midnight and 4 a.m., so it's really been only one day, but we'll let that go. Yeah, I mean, it's a great scene.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I think is technically interesting is, we see Audrey. Feels iconic. Audrey's dancing, that swaying dancing that
Yes.
she does, is like one of those touchstones of the entire show that calls to mind immediately. But also, the music she's dancing to is in the scene. It's a diegetic music. It's not, which it could be anything. It could have been just like any sort of music in the show. But Ben comes in and says, like, turn off this racket. Which, okay, it's not like, I don't know, Norwegian death metal or something, but it's just whatever. But we get that, and even after she turns off the music, she still has that kind of dreamy swaying going about her. She's just such an interesting actress in this.
Yeah, it's awesome, and you see in her face too, like stuff just sort of rolls off her. She doesn't really take anything necessarily too seriously, but this like sticks. Like you get that push in on her face, like after he says the line, and you can see how hurt she is.
And that's when she turns around to the camera. She actually turns her back to him. I think maybe to cover some of that. It's like, oh, Daddy,
Right.
I'm so scared. But she actually,
Yeah, but it hurt. Yeah,
it actually really hurts. Well, the day progresses. It's supper time over at the Briggs house. We got the Major. He has a clarifying conversation with his son, Robert, including his feelings about smoking at the dinner table.
Yeah, this scene is really a standout for a lot of reasons. But one is the music changes. Like, it's not Angelo Badalamenti. I think you asked me if he did all the music, and I guess I was wrong, because this is like an opera is playing, which changes like the tone of the entire show to have this sort of dinner with opera playing, and Major Briggs is just so over Bobby's shit. Like, he just slaps him.
Well, he gets to that point, but he doesn't start off there, though.
No, but he hits a breaking point.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. Like,
Yeah.
he's just over it.
Yeah.
And the meatloaf scene, and then the mom, like, we're here for you, Bobby. And just the dialogue is so great. Like, you can tell the people who wrote this are very smart. Just to be able to write dialogue like that with rebellion as a sign of strength, and every line that Major Briggs has is so good and smart and intellectual. And it's just, and the other thing is just like, when you think about the writing, like every character is so unique and well-defined and clearly their own person. I mean, so much of that, obviously, the actors are bringing
Sure,
to it.
of course, yeah.
But in this, like, just the mannerisms and the way that these lines are said and the order that the words appear, and it's just perfect.
Yeah.
I love this. I love the Briggs.
I was just say, like, I
love
think
Major
You're a
Briggs.
big fan of Major Briggs, and this has got to be one of those reasons why, because he does start off being so, like, overly reasonable with Robert.
Yeah.
And just like, I understand where you're coming from. Rebellion's healthy, but it has to be confined within, the structures of our family. And I know that you don't want to engage in that. Like, he's just so understanding until Bobby pulls out that cigarette, and then it's just bang.
Right. He's
smack.
understanding, but he's like so highly intellectual.
Yes.
That this is how I talk to humans. Like, I know how humanity works, and this is, of course, your feeling. But he'll hit a point where it's like, bam, and like, oh, it's awesome.
But then the
he also
cigarettes-
reminds me of my father. Like, my father worked in security intelligence and counterintelligence, and everything was top secret. Yeah, and so the path to me having the Bobby Briggs haircut is pretty
Pretty well
evident.
defined for you. Yeah.
But yeah, it is like doesn't know what's going on because he's thinking about like something we can't even possibly understand.
Right,
And they
right.
set that up, and I love it. What do you think of Betty Briggs?
There's just not a whole lot there to kind of grab onto yet from her.
She gets one line. It's one of the best lines of the whole episode.
which-
when she delivers that line, "We're here for you, Bobby."
Oh, yeah. It's
right after the
Right.
cigarette goes in. Like, if you only have one line in a show and you
That's a good- yeah.
come to the table with that, like,
as
I
she
love it.
reacts to the cigarette in her meatloaf and is not quite sure what to do about. Yeah.
The timing is great.
timing's
Like,
really
it's really funny.
Yeah. From there, we head over to follow Cooper and Harry at their visit to the Double R. Cooper gets his fill of cherry pie again. We get Shelley, Norma, and the log lady each talking with Cooper, but the log doesn't talk. So we got all these characters together, Eric.
Yeah, this is fun. Again, we're keep seeing Cooper meet people, so
Yeah.
he's going to get to meet Shelley. I like their interaction with Shelley and Cooper, and nothing's a sure thing, Shelley, and all of that stuff.
Yep.
We get some clues, right? So Cooper is not on to Leo.
No.
But when he meets Shelley, there's a note of like, oh, Shelley Johnson, that's with a J. And like, so Cooper sort of makes that connection. We learn that Leo's got a rap sheet, but it's not made into anything bigger than that, but it's just something to sort of write in your diary.
Well, I will say that's the only piece that felt a little clunky. Yes, we got to call back to the J. We know that's the thing. But Cooper says, is that Shelley Johnson with a J? As opposed to Shelley Johnson with the silent Q,
it could be a G, maybe. I don't. Yeah,
there's a lot of Johnsons out there.
I didn't.
Anyway, but you're right. It is. We're starting to pull these threads and call that back.
He meets Norma, and then we get to find out that Laura worked on Meals on Wheels, and we're going to get the names of the people on the route. So we have more clues to sort of uncover. And then obviously the log lady.
Yeah.
I love the log lady. She's the best. She takes no shit.
Yeah.
You respect her or you get the fuck out.
Yep.
And Cooper fails the test.
He does, which is almost surprising. I guess it's not surprising in this moment. It's totally fine in retrospect because we know that he's such an intuitive, also intellectual, but a very intuitive investigator that I wouldn't have found it weird in retrospect if he did actually talk to the log. But this is, it just is not that moment for it at all. So it is funny. It's just like, I thought so, which was great. I do like, so this is the third thing we've learned about Laura. We've already knew some of it, but third in this episode telling us about Laura. So she's organized the Meals on Wheels. She's helping Johnny Horn. She's giving Josie English lessons. So like all these things that are like, she did any one of those, that would be like, oh, she's like kind of, not a pillar of the community, but she's active in the community, whatever. But she's doing all these things, so that's all been kind of given to us in a lump in this whole episode.
And it's also a way to say, like, to again, mystery show, who killed Laura Palmer. You're connecting, right? Like every character now has a potential connection to Laura, and maybe that connection resulted in her death. So yeah, it's like if you had one of those murder boards, you would really
absolutely
strain yourself.
My log saw something that night, Eric. My log saw something. So after that, Shelley returns home. Leo confronts her about his lost favorite blue shirt. He feels really strongly about this blue shirt.
There's so much going on in this scene.
This is
First
such
off,
a tough scene.
It's very hard to watch. It's just straight violence against Shelley. It's awful. If you didn't hate Leo before, I don't know what's wrong with you, but now you're really going to hate him. And the thing that's so sad, the first time he's asking her to do the laundry, the end of that scene, he says, "Save me a piece of pie. I'm stopping by the diner." He doesn't show up, and she still brings him the pie home.
Yeah.
Just
we didn't
breaks
actually
your
talk
heart.
about that specifically. That is a very classic, like, controlling move to do. I'm going to show up at some point. You're not going to know when it is, but like keeping her on a leash. But you're right. Then she does.
Yeah, I was
bring
saving
the pie
that
home.
for this because then you get the
Absolutely.
She still brings it home. Now, on a lighter note,
In this scene?
because I'm going to find a lighter note in this scene. When Shelley comes in the door, you get to see more of the Johnson home. Next to the door looks like it's a picture of Dennis Hopper, like a painted picture of Dennis Hopper. And so my question, and I asked Kyle McLaughlin this question on Twitter, he did not answer me.
Oh, try again.
Do we know who painted that? Did Shelley take a art class and paint Dennis Hopper, or did Leo take a class at a community college? And it's got to be Dennis Hopper. Like if you find the still of the,
I'll take a look.
This is not a video show, so I can't drop it in here, but look for it. That scene when Shelley comes in, it looks like Dennis Hopper in
What, Blue Velvet?
no,
Wild
his
Heart?
big motorcycle. movie.
Easy Rider.
Easy Rider. Yes,
Okay.
it looks like
Which
whatever.
Lynch film was Hopper in?
Blue Velvet.
It was Blue Velvet.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Frank, what a great
I'm just trying
character.
I
Such
get
a,
them mixed up, but yeah.
So anyway, and then other than that, it's just horrible. Big clue that points a very large flashing arrow at Leo is in this scene.
Because he doesn't like football?
Because
He
there's
hates it so much that he's cutting
plastic wrap everywhere.
Yeah. Well, I think, okay, so first of all, horrifying scene, we should talk about that. But that moment when Shelley's cowering in the corner, almost wrapped in plastic is, I mean, maybe it's a little on the nose, but it is effective. It's really effective, and it's terrifying. But yeah, so he starts off, he's at the kitchen table and he's cutting open the football. So there's the whole drug trade. So that's going to come into it. We obviously think at that point he hides that from Shelley. And when he just slips that bar of soap into the sock, it's just, I just
It's
want to
horrible.
turn
Yeah.
away from the scene. And then he turns the music on, and you see the push in on Shelley cowering the corner. You just hear
The sound.
hear the sound of the sock.
Yeah.
It's such a terrible scene, such a hard scene to watch. And I wonder if it's a scene, as much as there's so much violence on TV, there's so much violence, either over the top, guys punching each other, or the aftermath of violence, but not this. And I wonder if
Yeah.
this would actually even get. It's just so you don't
It's
see
domestic
anything.
abuse, and it's all it's
But it's-
you don't need you don't need to see
thank
anything. But
God you
like
don't.
that sound is like, oh,
That's
it's
what does it.
horrible.
It absolutely does. The sound design is really,
And her
very good.
screaming, and again, she brought the pie,
She brought the pie. She brought that cherry pie.
and he didn't come.
Do you think he ate the pie though? That's the important question. You probably ate it.
No.
Back at the Hayward's house, supper tonight includes James, special guest.
Yeah.
But there's some uninvited guests outside that take notice that James is there.
This is a very awkward dinner. The
you think?
dude wants fruit punch. The bitch, take the sparkling cider. That sounds great. That sounds amazing.
Yeah.
I want the sparkling cider.
But no,
I'll have fruit punch.
I'll have fruit punch.
Now, Sweater James is parent friendly.
It's a very different James.
He's a different James for a different era. He's drinking fruit punch. Like
He's all dimples.
Everyone's so like, oh, hello, James. Like the nervous energy,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
everyone is perfect in this house, and it's great. I don't have much to say
The
about
little
this,
small
other
talk
than-
between Doc Hayward and James is nice. There's just like trying to
Yeah, that's
make
cool. And you-
conversation.
Right, you find out James's mom. We heard about her before. She's
Yep.
a writer. You get a sense she disappears a lot, and it is like you're right. It's like when they talk about Nadine, and they share that laugh because
It's like she's
clearly
quite
she's not well.
Yeah, let's all laugh at her illness. It's great. But then you get Donna and James just absolutely giddily like mooning over each other at the table, which is it's very cute, but also very over the top.
It is kind of weird, a little bit. Not to take Mike and Bobby's side, but Bobby was dating Laura, and then James ends up with Laura, and then Laura is murdered, and then James is now with Donna, and I'm gonna end it there.
It's too
but-
bad we can only kill him once. I mean, truer words, Snake. Truer words. He really is your role model. It's coming clear. And then finally, we find Dr. Jacoby in his island-themed office, settling in to listen to a tape recording that Laura sent to him as he looks at his the half-heart necklace that he retrieved from the woods. This is an interesting scene.
This is an amazing scene. From the audio that you get, James is so dumb, and we're just coming
that
off
stuck
this
such
line.
a dagger in my heart. I mean,
you come off this scene with them making eyes at each other, like Donna and James.
Yeah.
And then you know that he was dating her and he loved her, and all of that was not like James is so dumb. She's irritating to her.
Oh!
And
hang
then
on.
you.
I want to come back to that. You think?
Well, in that
irritating?
moment, yeah, she's saying
only
James
so much
is
sweet
so
she can
dumb.
take.
She wants like the almost the inappropriate. I wish I met you, Dr. Jacoby, years ago because I could only take. She can't be good for too long because I can't
I know what you're
properly
saying. I
explain
gotcha.
what I would want to say.
Yeah.
Not that Laura's mean or evil or that she doesn't want love, but I can't really
the way
go
that I would say it
farther.
is not. It's a semantic thing. Is it that James is irritating, or that she's irritated by how she is around James? It's slightly different thing. Like he's dumb. He's like innocent, I guess, is a way to think about it instead. And he's so purely in love with her.
Sometimes
that's the
James
part.
is dumb.
Okay. We haven't really seen that so far in this. So that's fine.
In Laura's defense,
But he is so like purely sweet. And like when she says, there's only so much sweet I can
But
take.
right?
Yeah.
But the point is just the contrast between
Yes.
coming off of that scene and then hearing what Laura really, or whether she really thought this or not, but you
What she
hear it out of
says,
her
yeah.
voice. We learn that Laura and Jacoby have an inappropriate relationship. Like, we knew he was seeing her. We knew the parents didn't want to go, but she's saying, I wish I met you. And, like, you can tell something is, oh my,
Well, I knew that
yes.
something was off. Like the whole thing is not okay.
Listen to that audio again.
It's Thursday, the 23rd, and I'm so bored. Actually, I'm in kind of a weird mood. God, it's James is sweet, but he's so dumb. I should have met you a long time ago, Dr. Jacoby, because right now I can take just so much of sweet. I just know I'm gonna get lost in those woods again tonight.
And then you hear about a mystery man. Now, we don't know who this mystery man is, but it's another thing for our diary, Dan.
Yeah.
And then obviously the other half of the necklace. And,
Yep.
But talk at length.
No, I mean,
I'm sure
that's
you're going
it.
to talk
That's-
about his room
That's
and
it.
the rocks.
That's-
and
you
the-
covered everything else. It's really just this fantasy room that he's constructed there. It's, we have the blown up silhouette of a tropical sunset. In the one room, we have the tiki masks or tribal masks like all over the place. We have an aquarium that's not filled with water. It's filled with like light up anemone in there. So it's like a fake aquarium as well. He's got the coconut tree that he pulls down the coconut that has like the compartment in it that has the locket. And he sits down in the hammock style chair and there's like beach rocks behind it. Like it's just this completely constructed
he's set up
fantasy
his
room
own
around him.
paradise, his own tropical paradise.
Yeah. And then just obviously the way he's dressed is so crazy too. But
Then
yeah,
we see him. He's got that necklace, and his reading.
he's crying.
It looks like he's crying, and it almost looks like he's laughing. He's not laughing. He's crying. But the way that it's so emoted, there's like a laugh to it almost. I don't know. You can read this scene and all of this stuff going on like something's wrong. And we don't know how he got it. We saw the gloved hand. So was he following them? What's he doing in the woods? Like he's potentially a very bad guy.
One of the things that Laura says is, well, first on the tape, you can't quite see the whole thing, but it says like Dr. Jacoby with love, Laura, written in swoopy cursive, in presumably Laura's hand. And she says, as you know, I sent this one of the envelopes you gave me. And it's just a weird detail that one of the envelopes you gave me.
Well, it's a weird detail because it leads to let us know that he wants her to be sending stuff.
But
to
like
him.
the way that, I get
Yeah,
what the point is. It's just a weird way of getting to that point. But that's fine. This is totally great. I also the chilling line. I just know I'm going to get lost in the woods again. Mm-hmm. Just it's so good. And then obviously she goes running off at Sparkwood, 21. But that's how it ends. What an incredible episode.
It's a very, very good episode.
Makes me want to watch more.
But yes, I cannot wait to do the next one. That is one of my favorites.
Yeah.
So hopefully you like this. Hopefully you're enjoying us dive deep into this world, and hopefully we come up with something other than a coconut.
Absolutely. And since you're
Coconuts aren't underwater, I could have come up with some other
diving deep, well, they can fall
dive deep, and I
into.
came up with a conch shell.
Oh,
I've got the conch. It's my turn to talk. I came up with a shell. Listen to the
help
shell,
me.
and you'll hear.
Until next time.
All right, goodbye, everyone. Thank you for listening to the Meanwhile podcast with Dan Johnson and Eric Grissom. If you would like to support the Meanwhile podcast, you can leave us a donation by visiting ericgrissom.com/meanwhile and clicking on the support link. If you like our show, please consider rating and reviewing the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you're hearing this now. Meanwhile is produced by Eric Grissom and Where's My Robots? The Meanwhile theme song is written and performed by Paul Finn and Evening Pines. If you want to let us know what you thought of the show, you can reach Dan at danjnj.com, both on the web and on Blue Sky. Eric can be found on Blue Sky at ericgrissom.com, which is also his website. It's also me, right? That's weird. We'll see you again. And in the meantime, be good.
Listen to the sounds.
Meanwhile.